I do nothing but read news all day, every day. And I read a variety of sources. I read left-wing sources and right-wing sources, and I can't quite figure out what the Democrats are actually doing. And the only conclusion I can come to is that they are cheating, they are lying, and they're preparing for extreme violence. To what degree, I don't know, but we did just see a man lose his life. Adam Schiff, a Democrat, came out recently saying a whistleblower has come forward about Russian interference in the election. And I just thought to myself, are you kidding me? And so I was sitting here going through just what is the story today? And I got to tell you, man, I'm just a bit tired and pessimistic because every day it's just an escalation of the previous days. How many stories have I already done? Segments where I talk about Democrats cheating, rigging the election, and it's just more and more news every single day. The big breaking story today is that Democrats are blocking the GOP's COVID relief package. Why? Probably for nonsensical partisan reasons, but the Democrats wanted to actually get rid of voter ID laws. Why? Why do they want to make the election less secure? That's why I start with this tweet from Will Chamberlain. Voting in person is high integrity. Absentee voting is high integrity because people have to request ballots. Mail-in voting is low integrity. And if you want low integrity voting in one of the most polarized elections in history, we have to assume you intend to cheat. And I think I know why. Because we can look back to Moody's analytics from last year and see they're hitting the nail on the head for what they needed to accomplish to cause Trump to lose in November. Meanwhile, a group of around 50 leftist organizations are preparing for violence in that scenario, telling America, unless Joe Biden wins in a landslide, there will be violence. And we're planning on it. We can see all of these smears coming out in the media. Bob Woodward, he's got these 18 or so interviews from Trump where Trump apparently said things they're now smearing him with. He downplayed the coronavirus, and this is being weaponized. They're claiming that he called soldiers losers and suckers. It is literally every single stop being pulled out to make sure Trump loses. But they're telling us over at 538 that Joe Biden is favored to win. Why? This just doesn't make sense to me. If Joe Biden is favored to win, they wouldn't need to go this insane. Maybe they're really just scared that their data is wrong again. And the secret Trump voters will come out and will support Trump. We really just don't know. What I can tell you is that, man, the dirty, dirty tricks coming from the Democrats make me want to barf. I got to tell you, I'm tired. I really am. Because this mail-in voting thing is very obviously messed up. The claims about Russiagate are just so played out. And they just keep pushing forward. Now we're hearing Twitter has joined Facebook saying that Trump can't declare victory if he wins the election. just Trump, not Biden, just Trump. That's what they're doing. It's so obvious what's happening. Some people really hate Trump. They don't want him to win. I just want free and fair elections. I want liberty and justice for all. But I don't think we're going to get that. In fact, I think what we are likely to see is chaos moving forward. Well, let me just go through these stories and we'll just kind of I'll tell you what's going on and why I believe we may be seeing some violence moving forward. Of course, you may have heard that they're planning a 50-day White House siege, and many have called for more protests in front of the White House after the election. And they're not going to tell us who won on election night. They're trying to explain every reason why there shouldn't be a winner and why it's totally normal that we won't know who our president is. So what do you think happens in that interim period? Chaos, probably violence. And that's what I'm worried about. Before we jump into these stories, make sure you head over to timcast.com/donate. If you'd like to support my work, there are many ways you can give. There is a P.O. box if you'd like to send stuff, but the best thing you can do is share this video. If you think what I'm saying is good and that people need to hear it, then I rely on word of mouth. So you can share it and that would really help. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's just jump into it. Adam Schiff, with the eye roll of the century, I'm telling you, he said, "We received a whistleblower complaint alleging DHS suppressed intel reports on Russian election interference, altered intel to match false Trump claims, and made false statements to Congress. This puts our national security at risk. We will investigate." And sure enough, we have this from the U.S. House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. I almost couldn't believe it when he posted this. They're really just going to go for Russiagate again? It's not even original. It's literally the same thing they did in 2015. I kid you not. We are trapped in a loop. Did you see the news the other day about the gender reveal party explosion starting wildfires? Apparently it happened the year before. So what's going on? What is this? Adam Schiff literally saying Russian interference helped Trump win. Shut up. I'm sick of it. It's just fake. They're absolutely desperate. And it's making me, I'm just so fed up. I'm going to show you some quick context before I go into the next stories. This is from October of 2019. CNBC reported, quote, if the economy a year from now is the same as it is today, or roughly so, then the power of incumbency is strong and Trump's election odds are very good, particularly if Democrats aren't enthusiastic and don't get out to vote, said Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics and co-author of the paper along with Dan White, the firm's director of government consulting and fiscal policy research. They go on to say it's about turnout. 3 models show Trump getting at least 289 electoral votes, assuming average turnout. His chances decrease with maximum turnout on the Democratic side and increase with minimum turnout. Of the 3 models, he does best under the pocketbook measure of how people feel about their finances. In that scenario, assuming average non-incumbent turnout, he gets 351 electoral votes. The generic Democrats, 187. Record turnout is vital to a Democratic victory. Well, guess what? Democratic states across this country shut down their economies and they shut down their economies. They destroyed them. It wasn't the Republican states. It wasn't the Sun Belt states. Some of them did a little bit, but for the most part, they've been kind of okay. But look at New York. Cuomo and many other governors put sick patients into nursing homes, killing old people. Is this some kind of grand conspiracy? No, I'm not suggesting that. What I think is happening, though, is that these people are trapped in this world where they have perverse incentives to destroy the country because they hate Donald Trump. And look, the best example, I think, is when Donald Trump comes out against critical race theory and CNN defends it. Did you bother to Google search what it means? Because most people don't like that stuff. They don't like cancel culture. But anything Trump does, they must oppose. And all of a sudden, COVID happens. And that was a serious threat. It looks like, according to the data, we may have reached herd immunity already. Why is it then that so many of these states, mostly Democrat states, won't reopen and arrest people who try? Could it be because these people are deranged and unhinged and hate Trump? We just saw Biden and Kamala Harris suggest they wouldn't trust Trump if he put out a vaccine. And many of these for COVID, and many people who support the Democrats said something similar. It's funny. Now, to be fair, I've often said if a vaccine comes out, I'll wait a little bit before taking it. But to see all of these people just immediately say Trump said there's going to be a vaccine. Nope, we won't do it. As if the FDA wouldn't be in charge of it. No, they're so unhinged. They will absolutely do everything in their power to work within the parameters that were set before them. They need a bad economy. They need maximum voter turnout. So what do we get? Take a look at this. This is the big news from today. And, you know, to be honest, I was like, maybe I should do a story talking about Democrats blocking COVID relief. But I don't think it's the most important thing. They did it. Democrats block slimmed down GOP coronavirus relief bill as hopes fade for any more congressional support. There won't be. Why did they block it? Well, they wanted certain things they didn't get. Take a look at one of the things they wanted. HEROES Act would eliminate state requirements for voter IDs in federal elections. I kid you not. The Democrats proposed eliminating election security measures in states where they legally require it. Why would they do that? Unless they were planning to cheat. Why would they push for mail-in voting when we know it's broken and low integrity? And now we're hearing all of these stories. New York Times, NPR, Baltimore Sun. Mail-in voting is broken. Why are they pushing it? They're cheating. Come on, man. I'm sorry. I hate to go this route where I'm saying they're straight up doing some, you know, they're trying to steal an election. Because they say it all the time about Trump. But you're going to have to give me an explanation for why they want to eliminate voter ID laws. They wanted reform on voter signature verification as well. Now, Trump, he's said that they wanted to eliminate it. That's not true. They don't want to eliminate it, but you can argue that they want to eliminate it as it exists today. Sure, fine. But Trump said they want to get rid of it. That's not true. They do want to get rid of voter ID, though. USA Today straight up says our ruling true. Although it's unlikely to pass, the HEROES Act would amend the Help America Vote Act of 2002 and allow a sworn signature as acceptable identification, eliminating the need for voter IDs. Come on, just tell me why they're doing it. Because they're cheating. Now, here's some of the latest news as well. Twitter's new rules will flag if Trump claims early victory. Just Trump. Just Trump. Pay attention. Facebook and Twitter have said if Trump declares victory, they will flag or remove his posts. What? So only Biden is allowed to win on social media? Yup. What do you think happens then if Trump actually wins? But then Biden says he won. And then everyone sees on social media Trump saying nothing. Nothing from Trump yet, they say. Who's going to go to? Is he going to go to CNN? CNN's not going to report that he won if he did. They're taking away the president's outlet to speak directly with the American people. If Trump claims it, isn't that remarkable? They're screaming in our faces. But you know what? They don't care about the likes of me because they know that low information voters aren't paying attention and won't care and don't intend to know. They're not going to go out and they're going to find out about these things. Facebook did the same thing. Facebook says it will flag any Trump effort to declare premature victory. They are telling us only Trump, only Trump. Come on, man. To quote Joe Biden, come on, man, right? Isn't it obvious? So let's talk about some of the odds. Let's talk about what's going on. I think there's a good chance, actually, that Joe Biden loses, and I'll show you why in a second. But this narrative we're being smacked in the face with it. Why? I'm just annoyed. I am very, very annoyed by all of this. In what reasonable reality do social media companies create rules specifically targeting one person and a presidential candidate, nonetheless, the president himself? You can't justify that. Now, I guess they'll say, oh, if Biden declares victory too, we'll say the same thing. But they've already told us that if Biden wins on election night, they'll just accept it. We've got the war games. We've got this article from the Daily Beast. The left secretly preps for MAGA violence after election day. They're telling us straight up, if Joe Biden wins, we're all good. Trump will transfer power. We all go home. If Trump wins, however, mass violence. Okay. There's no scenario in which Trump just wins and we carry on. No, of course not. Trump won in 2016. And what happened? Riots. They know it. They're going to go out and riot if they lose. Here's what they're saying over at 5:30. They're saying Biden is favored to win the election, but they bring up an interesting point. Trump wins 25 and 100. Biden wins 74 and 100. They mention Trump has an electoral college advantage again this cycle. Economists don't think the lower unemployment rate signals a clear recovery. Well, Trump needed a good economy to win, and the Democrats needed a high record voter turnout. So what do? They're pushing mail-in voting, even though we know it's safe to vote in person because Birx and Fauci have said so. They're pushing mail-in voting, even though COVID cases are rapidly declining and almost non-existent for the most part. I mean, there are some cases, but mortality is dramatically down. And the mortality rate, I believe now is like 0.02. So it's not even a major issue. And nonetheless, Birx and Fauci said we can do it. But they're still pushing mail-in voting. You know why? I think they're hoping it will maximize voter turnout. In some states, that is what happened. Well, let me show you some tweets. Nate Silver says, chance of a Biden electoral college win if he wins the popular vote by X points. If Joe Biden gets the popular vote by only 0 to 1 points, he has a 6% chance of winning, meaning Trump has a 94% chance of winning. If Joe Biden wins the popular vote by 1 or 2 points, like Hillary Clinton did, he has a 22% chance of winning, meaning Trump has a 78% chance of winning. With 2 to 3 points, it goes to 46. Still giving, I shouldn't say Trump has that much because it's not 1 for 1. There's third-party candidates too. But for the most part, that means Trump is favored to win. And Nate Silver basically says the Electoral College is not really safe for Biden unless he wins 5+ points in the national popular vote. Will that happen? I honestly do not know. He goes on to mention a bunch of other weird scenarios that could happen, like there's less than 1 in 100 that Trump wins in a landslide. And I think that's a fair point. I want to clarify, too, especially when I'm like, if I ever tweet something about a Trump landslide, I post it on Facebook. I don't mean it quite literally. I'm just saying Trump's going to win. It's hyperbole. It's kind of meant to be silly. I think that it's closer than people realize, but it's hard to know for sure. I will tell you that so long as there's dirty games occurring, cheating, then I think Trump's at a serious disadvantage. I mean, you look at all the smear pieces that come out against him. You got the entire establishment working against Trump, including many Republicans. Tucker Carlson actually accuses Lindsey Graham of convincing Trump to talk with Woodward. Well, if Trump says something to Bob Woodward and it's bad for Trump, that's Trump's fault. I don't care about Lindsey Graham, but some would suggest the establishment Republicans also want to stop Trump as well. And perhaps that's the case. So what happens? What happens in the event that come November 3rd, Trump can't declare victory? They've already predicted, some Democratic group, that Trump's going to win in a landslide. But then the mail-in votes come in for Joe Biden and Joe Biden wins. Let me just point out first and foremost, why does that make sense? How does that make sense? Wouldn't the ballots that come in just be random ballots as it is? If Trump was going to win the regular in-person vote, wouldn't it be easily surmisable that the votes that come from mail will be of a similar proportion? Meaning, it doesn't matter how you're voting. If for every 1.5 votes for Trump, there's one vote for Biden. Wouldn't that be similar with mail-in voting? What they're telling us is that Democrats are more likely to vote by mail. That's what they said in California, and I just don't see it. Because when we looked at California's 25th district, in fact, the people who voted by mail the most it was older people voting conservative. But don't worry, ignore those stats, because if Trump wins, we say no, you're not allowed to say you won. If Biden wins, you're good. And if Trump wins, we're going to wait because Biden's going to win anyway. It's like they're telling us they're cheating, and we know it. And then we're going to see some kind of violence. Anti-capitalists who started the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations have vowed to draw wind from Black Lives Matter and lay siege to the White House for 50 days. Now, that's just them exaggerating. They say nonviolent. They want to have some sit-in, mass protest. It'll probably happen outside the White House. Every stop is being pulled out. Now, I do want to mention, which is something interesting, when I hear conservatives say that these are Biden voters, Biden supporters, and they're Democrats and stuff like this, that's not true. The far left, they don't like Biden. But I do find it interesting that they so often support the establishment Democrats, that the riots kick up when Democrats lose. When there's Republicans in office, the far left goes insane and starts burning things down and throwing Molotov cocktails. So while they may not be themselves supporters, they only actually come out when they have a unified. I'll put it this way. The far left hates Biden, but regular people who are whipped up into a frenzy into hating Trump will show up and aid the far left. So there are some that are suggesting if Biden wins, they'll stop rioting. The far left probably still will, but they won't have as many numbers fluffing their ranks. So I think it's fair to say that when you see these people out on the street wearing all black and starting fires and stuff, many of them are, in fact, Biden supporters, and many of them believe Biden is a path towards them getting in a more socialist candidate. Notably, Joe Biden did that pact with Bernie Sanders. Now, is it what the far left wanted? No, but many of them think that's a path in the right direction for them to make gains. Something I'm not particularly enthused about. Another big story that we saw the other day is that from the Daily Beast, the left is secretly preparing for MAGA violence after Election Day. I don't think they're entirely wrong, but I wonder, why would the far left stop rioting and getting violent if just because Joe Biden won? I mean, they would still not like Joe Biden, his policies, and wouldn't they still want to protest? More importantly, it's not so much about this general far left anti-government stuff. It's about Black Lives Matter. If Joe Biden wins, why would Black Lives Matter all of a sudden be like, all right, we're good. No more riots. Are they Biden supporters? Is that all they really wanted, was for Biden to be president and they don't care about what policy he enacts? Or would they keep, rioting as well? Yeah, I think that's a likely scenario. Now, here's an interesting story from prospect.org. Something that needs to be brought up. I'm actually, no matter what happens, we're going to have an interesting couple of months. They say the transition, and I'll give you the gist of what they're talking about. If Donald Trump loses, What do you think he's going to do with the last 2 months or 3 months or whatever of his presidency? Well, I'll tell you this. I think one of the reasons that they're going to draw out the election as long as possible is because they don't want Trump to take dramatic action. You see, if on November 3rd, Joe Biden wins, they're probably going to start panicking because, well, Donald Trump's on his way out. What's he going to do? Pardon Snowden, pardon Assange, pardon all these nonviolent offenders, issue indictments against certain people, release a bunch of documents, just basically say, you know what, establishment, F you, you can have it. But what happens if the election gets delayed for several weeks and Trump doesn't know for sure? He can't take any kind of, no holds barred actions, kamikaze style. You know what? We're leaving. Let's just do all the things we wanted to do with pardons and whatever. He won't be able to do that because he won't know for sure. I mean, maybe he still will, under the premise that he either won or he didn't. So he might as well just go for it, because even if he pardons a bunch of people, and he wins, he's still president, and he got elected. So there you go. I think one of the funny things that they point out in this is this. At 11:45 a.m. on Inauguration Day, you can have Trump pardon Pence, then resign, and Pence pardons Trump. Oh, please. It's paranoid, delusional trash. Nah, I really don't see it. One thing I do find interesting is that if it was true Joe Biden was going to win, why would the Democrats be freaking out as much as they are, planning for violence and, rigging everything? The media, absolutely all the smears. Where are the smears against Biden? Where's any mainstream story talking about Biden? I'll wait. Not very many. Some. I mean, we had some allegations against Joe Biden. I think he's a creepy dude. We had the Ukraine stuff for a while, but right now, literally everything is Trump. It's almost like Joe Biden doesn't actually exist. Now, there's something I find particularly interesting here with this Politico story. I want to be in the Trump party. GOP rides voter registration surge in key state. Since 2016, Republicans have netted nearly 7 times as many registered voters in Pennsylvania than Democrats. I wonder what that means. Maybe they're going to win Pennsylvania, and that's a major victory for Trump. I really just don't know. In the past, you know what? I'm going to wrap this up because this was just kind of a... I gotta be honest, man. I was putting together a segment about the Democrats blocking the stimulus package, and I was like, who cares? Of course they did. And so I see this story. Senate Democrats block GOP police reform bill. That's right. June 24th. The Republicans put forth police reform. It was actually a compromise. A lot of people liked it. Democrats said no to this. And that's the bigger fear I have. There's a lot of Republicans who hate Trump. And I think they will do what their establishment. They're gonna play establishment. So if you want to go back to the way things used to be with the establishment running the show and bombing the Middle East, and you just don't care, and I think most Americans probably don't, well, then Biden's the victor, right? Biden is your guy. And I think many of the Republicans agree. And many Republicans would want to see that happen, too, because they're all warmongers. That's why so many of these establishment Republicans are endorsing Joe Biden, because they want to return to the status quo. Well, Donald Trump is a populist. I don't think the cat's out of the bag. No matter what happens moving forward, you can't change this. And this is where things get scary, or potentially not so scary. Well, I'll put it this way. Why would the Democrats just block these bills? It's because what really matters is partisanship. They don't actually care what the bill is. They're just going to say, no, you were bad. We've entered the period where at the highest levels of our government, there's no real policy argument. There's simply my tribe versus your tribe. Well, for me personally, I'm going to put my support behind the tribe that opposes identitarianism, and that is the Republican Party. For now, and I hope it remains that way. But we've seen a whole bunch of freaky policy ideas proposed by the left. They just recently did at University of Michigan Dearborn a whites-only cafe. That's what the left is doing. Democrats in California repealing Prop 209, all of this stuff. There's violence on the streets already. And when you add that to the idea that all we're really seeing in government is my tribe versus your tribe, what comes next? I don't know. If I look at all the news and I see the Democrats cheating, and that's it. They're rigging the election. Trump can't speak on Twitter about if he won, but Biden can. It's rigged, man. So what do you think's going to happen? Do you think people are going to take this lying down if they steal the election from Trump? I don't think so. But they're screaming in our faces also that it's Trump who's trying to steal the election. Yeah, I don't buy it. We've already got the expert opinion that mail-in voting is unnecessary. We've already seen social media companies preparing to block Trump from declaring victory, but not Biden. Trump specifically. Isn't that crazy? We've got the Democrats saying they're preparing for violence in the event that Trump wins. Think about that. Only if they win. I think it's obvious what's happening. And I don't see how we navigate our way out of this one. I don't know, man. It's just frustrating. I'll tell you what. Maybe I'm a little pessimistic on this segment simply because it's just the same thing every single day. Every day. It's just another one-up of the absurdity in rigging the election. But I guess we'll see how it plays out. I don't think they're taking any chances. I don't think Trump was supposed to win, and they're mad about it. So we'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all then.